大家好。
Good afternoon, members. Welcome to today's meeting. Now, as the chairperson is otherwise engaged, I'm going to take the place of chairman today. There is a quorum, and it is the appointed time I call to order the meeting. We're now at item 1, information paper issued since the last meeting. I refer members to the information paper issued since the previous meeting on the 7th of May. It is a list of financial-related conferences and other conferences for the second half of the year provided by the CSTB. Item 2. There's items for discussion at the next meeting. The next regular meeting is scheduled at 4:30 p.m. on the 2nd of July this year. We are going to discuss the following items proposed by the administration. That is the update on Hong Kong Disneyland Resort. Members, do you have any views on the item? If not, then we move on to item 3. Amendments to the Hong Kong Civil Aviation Investigation of Accidents Regulations Cap 448B and reports on the work of the Air Accidents Investigation Authority. I now invite the officials to come in. Members who would like to speak, please press the Request to Speak button.
I
welcome the representatives of the administration. With us today are Ms. Joanne Hung, Deputy Secretary for Transport and Logistics, Mr. Wong Chun-to, PAS for Transport and Logistics, Mr. Man Ka-chai, Chief Accident and Safety Investigator, and Mr. Anderson Siu, Deputy Chief Accident and Safety Investigator. Welcome. I will first invite the official to give us a briefing on the paper. There will be a PowerPoint presentation. Which official will give us the briefing? Ms. Hung, thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman and members. We have two parts under the amendments. For the first part, we will brief members on the work of the Air Accidents Investigation Authority, or the AAIA, since its establishment in September 2018. Now, in 2017, pursuant to the requirements of the ICAO, or the International Civil Aviation Organization, the AAIA was established under Cap 448B. Today, we are going to report to members the work of the AAIA, including the investigation of air accidents and incidents, and also collaboration with other organizations. For the second part, we will seek members' view on the proposed legislative amendments to the Cap 448B. Cap 448B was last revised in year 2017, and then we have been reviewing whether we need to amend the law to keep the standards in line. So on this occasion, we are going to propose amendments to Cap 448B to incorporate the latest international standards in the law. Now, in the following, I will invite Mr. Anderson Siu, Deputy Chief Accident and Safety Investigator, to walk us through the presentation. Good afternoon, Chairman and members. I'm now going to report to you the work of the AIA. Now, in the arena of air accidents and incidents, the International Civil Aviation Organization, or ICAO, plays an important role. The Chicago Convention Annex 13 sets out the independent investigation standard. Now, it requires contracting parties to incorporate the contents of Annex 13 into our law. Annex 13 applies to air accidents and incidents. Now, in Hong Kong, we rely on CAP 448B, Hong Kong Civil Aviation Investigation of Accidents Regulations, to provide for the investigation standards. Now, under the law, the AAIA was established. This is a statutory body for investigating such accidents. The AAIA is a body independent of the CAD and under the purview of the TLB. Now, as led by the Chief Accident and Safety Investigator, in accordance with Annex 13 and the regulation, we will conduct investigation on air accidents and incidents which occur in Hong Kong in accordance with the rules. Now, when necessary, we would also assist other contracting parties to conduct non-local accidents and incidents. Now, this is not for the purpose of apportioning blame or liability. Rather, we are trying to prevent accidents from occurring. Now, since the establishment in 2018, the AAIA has completed investigation for 30 civil aviation accidents or incidents. Some 47 safety recommendations were given to the stakeholders so as to improve flying standards. This includes local civil aviation authority, aircraft manufacturers, and aircraft operators. Besides investigation, we also actively exchange and collaborate with other authorities overseas. We have signed cooperative agreements and MOUs to enhance our capacity. Now, AAIA is an important part of the civil aviation industry in Hong Kong. We have been collaborating with the CAD to educate the industry and enhance our investigation capacity. The major amendments under the proposed amendments are such that we can keep in line with the latest standards and requirements under the Chicago Convention. Now, these are the major contents of the amendments. First, concerning the entitlements and obligations of non-local representatives in Hong Kong investigation. We propose to introduce a new regulation under Annex 13 on the entitlements of contracting parties concerned. For example, the countries where aircraft in concern was registered, designed, manufactured, or operated. It also sets out the entitlements and obligations of the accredited representatives, advisors, and experts, and sets out the circumstances in which these persons may take part in an investigation initiated by AAIA. The amendments also set out the entitlements and obligations of Hong Kong representatives in non-Hong Kong investigation. When the aircraft in relation is manufactured in Hong Kong, with the approval or the empowerment by the Chief Accident and Safety Investigator, an investigator can participate in a non-local investigation conducted by a contracting party. Now, to encourage or inculcate a reporting system or reporting culture in the local aviation industry, we have provided for operation of a voluntary incident reporting system. It is such that even for non-mandatory conditions, any person may provide information on incidents to the Chief Inspector for following up. We are also updating the regulation in accordance with the Annex 13 to extend the period during which a person may make a representation to AAIA from 28 days to 30 days. Now, the highlights of this amendment is the introduction of penalties. Under the existing legislation, there is no penalty for any behavior obstructing the investigation. So we are proposing penalties on non-compliances. For example, a failure to provide information as required by the Chief Inspector within the prescribed time frame and the obstruction of investigation. The maximum penalty on summary conviction is a fine of $5,000 and imprisonment for 6 months. We have consulted the relevant stakeholders, including local airlines, helicopter operators, aircraft maintenance companies, the AA, the CAD, the GFS, and also trade unions of cabin crew members. They all supported the proposals. Concerning the timetable, we plan to introduce the proposals to the Legislative Council by the end of this year or early next year. So that concludes my report. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Andy and Seal. The floor is now open to members' questions. I invite the administration to reply to members' questions. So far, we have 4 members. They are Mr. Jeffrey Lam, Mr. Edmund Wong, Mr. Chen Xiu-hong, Mr. Frankie Yik, and Mr. Holden Chow. We have ample time, so in the first round, I will give each member 5 minutes, questions and answers included. First member, Mr. Jeffrey Lam.
Thank you, Chair. Today we are talking about accident investigation. It is even too many for us to experience one accident. Whenever accident occurred, we have to take an active role and respond to it immediately. Sometimes I wonder, is it good for us to suggest Hong Kong to become an accident investigation center? Maybe it will give us a negative impression because it seems that we have a lot of accidents. Anyway, we have to look into these accidents in a serious manner. Before accident investigation, it is always important for us to have safety promotion. Therefore, apart from the discussion of the civil aviation investigation regulations, I wonder if there is any reminders for the pilots or the flight crew. Would there be any reminders for the crew so that they can more actively prevent accidents from happening? With the safety promotion measures in place, I believe that there will be some positive impact because not all accidents are caused by malfunctioning of machinery. Hong Kong is really fortunate because we did not experience a lot of accidents. In the past 1 to 2 decades, we have barely a handful of serious accidents. Well, to me, when accidents happened, I do not think that there is a center that overview the investigation, including the delivery of the parts. Sometimes it has to send to Boeing, the company, or the Airbus. Can you please explain to me about the process? How can we perfect the process? Because each and every part might cause an impact to the report. How can we assure other parties that Hong Kong do value safety? Because we want to become a city of tourism and we need to seek perfection. Could you please reply to me in this area? There are 2 questions. First one about safety promotion. The second one about enhancing the process of Accident Investigation Center. Thank you, Chair, and the question of Mr. Jeffrey Lam. I would like to respond to the first question, and then Mr. Mann, the Chief Accident and Safety Investigator, can respond to the second question about the details of accident investigation. In terms of safety promotion, truly, as Mr. Jeffrey Lam has said, apart from accident investigation, AAIA also conducts a lot of safety promotions, including safety briefings and also some on-site inspection. All these are being done to promote the message of safety to all stakeholders. We also work together with the Hong Kong International Aviation Academy in order to offer them training courses about accident investigation and also other safety measures. I would like to now defer to Mr. Manka Chai so that he can brief members about the process of accident investigation. Thank you, Mr. Lam, for your question. Speaking of accident and incident investigation, we will conduct our investigation according to the standards and recommended practices recommended by the ICAO. First of all, we have to collect evidence on site. Most importantly, we have to acquire the black box. If there is any broken parts, including the engines, all these parts have to be sent to the Boeing company for in-depth investigation, including any metal exhaustion. Is there any cracks in the materials? In the process of investigation, we will also look into the license of all aircraft crew, the training, as well as the background and accreditation of all the air control members. After collecting evidence, we have to conduct a very stringent analysis. Then we will come to a conclusion so as to the cause or the contributing factors towards the accident or incident. Finally, we will also issue some safety recommendations. If we spot any loopholes in the system or in the procedures, then we will issue safety recommendations to related parties and require them to follow up. After that, we will also publish a final investigation report. According to CAP 448B, this report has to be submitted to the CE. It is up to the CE to decide whether or not the report shall go public. Over the years, CE has always chosen to publicize our report. Therefore, all our previous reports is available for the public to review on our website. Next, Mr. Edmund Wong. Thank you, Chair. I have 3 questions. The first question has covered by the administration. We have issued 47 safety recommendations in the 35 investigations report, and these are all being released upon the instruction of CE. Can we have an overview table so that we can have a better understanding about the nature of the accident? Well, since you are giving us a work progress report, I would like to have a report so that we can have a better idea of the major causes of such accidents, including some malpractice of the aircrew, etc. And I have a follow-up question. Out of the 47 safety recommendations, if the stakeholders fail to comply, is there a penalty mechanism for them? My second question is, since you are proposing an amendment of CAP 448B, that is not to prevent any persons voluntarily report to the chief inspector. After including this clause, is there any protective mechanism about the identity of the person who reports to the inspector so that the rights of the persons who speak to the inspector can be protected? And the third question, well, the aircraft by Boeing has experienced quite a number of accidents recently. Would our authority take the initiative to investigate Boeing aircrafts in order to protect the safety of travelers and residents of Hong Kong? Thank you. Ms. Hong? I will respond to the first 2 questions. that is about initiating an investigation into the Boeing aircraft. Second, any protective measures towards those who voluntarily report to the inspector. And finally, I would like to invite Mr. Mann to respond to the last question. In the appendix of the paper, we have already provided a summary on all previous accident investigations details. And I would like to invite Mr. Mann to explain to you. Actually, each case involved a very complex analysis, and today Mr. Mann can brief members about the safety recommendations that we have issued. Coming back to the first question, the AAIA, according to the regulations or according to ICAO, the Air Accident Investigation Authority do not take any actions unless there is a serious accident. And for us, the accident has to occur in Hong Kong. And that is the time when we have the entitlement to conduct any investigations. Coming back to your question, if we are to initiate an investigation towards Boeing aircraft, I'm afraid that this is out of our scope. And rather, it is the duty of CAD. The CAD will always look into the Boeing's aircraft from the perspective of regulations. Second, about the confidentiality of the identity of the person who provides information. The answer is positive. His or her identity will only be known by the authority, and it will not be disclosed to any other parties without consent. And I would like to hand over to Mr. Mann. He can tell us about the categories of different safety recommendations that the authority have issued in the past. Upon the completion of the 30 investigations, I can give you some categories of background. The first one about the systems of aircraft, the intrusion of the runway, or the going off track of the runway. And under these circumstances, each case is different in terms of complexity. Normally, for aircraft that do not stay on the runway, we will recommend the aircrew to have additional training. There is one particular investigation in which we recommend the aircraft company to strengthen their screw. As for turbulence, we have also recommended some aircraft operator in terms of staff training to raise the awareness. Thank you, Chair. Just now, the administration mentioned that in the annex, he has listed out some categories. So there are two categorizations. One is 10 cases. The second one is 25 cases. The first one is number of investigations of air accidents or serious incidents transferred from CAD. And the second type, number of investigations of air accidents, serious incidents, or incidents launched by AAIA. So is it caused by human factors? Is it because of the control center or the maintenance? We want some more precise categorization, because here I can only see cases that is transferred from CAD and others that launched by AAIA. It is not helpful enough, because what we need to do is to prevent accidents from happening again. If there are problems with the maintenance staff, that we have to strengthen their training. If it is something going on with the aircraft itself, then it will be easily projected onto other aircrafts, and we need to step up our measures. So we need to know if it is an isolated case or is there a systematic issues, and that is how we can improve. Here are just my comments. Thank you, Chair. we can provide supplementary information after the meeting. The third member, Mr. Chen Siu-hong. Thank you, Chair. The government is trying to propose amendment CAP 448B according to Annex 13 under Chicago Convention of ICAO. I support such move. I have a number of questions. In paragraph 6, it mentioned that the AAIA has already made arrangements with CAD and Hong Kong Police Force, and they will continue to explore opportunities in forging new agreements with industry counterparts and related government departments. I would like to know what kind of opportunities are you looking for, because we have set up the authority since 2018. Why is there still some arrangements that yet to be done? And second, it also mentioned about upgrading investigation capabilities using technology. I very much agree with that, because it involves many expertise in the aviation industry as well as the experts. I would like to learn more about the manpower, especially the experts under AAIA for investigations. Do we have enough manpower? Do we need to seek external support? And my third question is, you also suggest to extend the period from 28 days to 30 days. As for the person who make representations, so there is only an addition of 2 days. It is just an alignment to Annex 13. Do we know the reasons behind? Why do we need to add 2 more days? Is it because, globally speaking, the period is for 30 days? That's why we have to follow suit.
3 questions. Chairman, I will defer the first 2 questions to Mr. Mann. Concerning the extension of the period for making representation from 28 days to 30 days, we're just aligning the time frame with the ICAO. Mr. Mann? The other 2 questions. Thank you, Chairman. Concerning collaboration with other departments, we have been working with the, say, fire services department in search and rescue and also evidence gathering. We haven't put that on this paper. However, we have been regularly working with these departments. And concerning the cooperative or cooperation agreement, you are entering into new cooperation agreements with certain departments. So besides FSD, what about the other departments? Why haven't agreements been signed with them? We are just following the guidelines under Annex 13. In entering into cooperation agreements with the relevant departments concerning the accidents which may happen on the runway or in the airport. That is the police force and the CAD in Maine. And also we are working with the departments of health and the hospitals to take care of the injured persons. So we have signed a memorandum with the departments of health to speed up the death inquiry process so that we can get the results sooner. What about other departments with which you haven't signed agreements? I think the document is a bit misleading because you say you will seek opportunity in collaborating with other departments. So I thought you were encountering some difficulties in asking help from some departments. If so, we can help you. What about the third question? Now, we agree that civil aviation accident investigation is an area requiring expertise. So we have done a lot in terms of hiring the relevant experts. For example, we have just hired a doctorate degree holder from overseas who is an expert in human factor leading to air accidents. And also we have hired a retired pilot who served as the Cathay and also the AA previously. So we have pilots, engineering experts, human factor experts, and also airport experts in the team. So in terms of the technical expertise, we have enough experts. What about training? We admit that most of the qualified experts in Hong Kong were trained overseas, including the team members in my team. Next, Mr. Frankie Yik. Thank you, Chairman. I'm following up on Mr. Chen Xiu-Hong's question. My pivot is a bit different. Now, about the agreement signed, I find it very curious. Cap 448B is a piece of legislation. Under the law, you already have the power to conduct investigation. So I don't understand why agreements are still needed. Second question. According to the paper, the AIA was established back in September 2018. However, since I became a council member, this is the first time I hear about a work report from the AIA. Now, according to paragraph 8, it seems that you have done quite a good job because the AIA has been tasked by the ICAO to lead a panel or lead a working group and act as an advisor to CAC and lead the International Society of Air Safety Investigators. So it seems that you enjoy good reputation. Now, recently, our customs has been sharing a customs working group with Thailand. So these are good stories we should tell the public. Now, concerning systemic issue, now this is more important. For human errors, we can simply rectify the behavior of the workers. Now, for systemic issue, if recommendations were made to the aircraft manufacturers and they fail to follow the recommendations, what can you do? Thank you. Concerning how the safety recommendations are being implemented, I will defer to Mr. Mann. Now, concerning the agreements signed with various departments, like Mr. Mann said, the AIA is working very closely with other departments. The agreements only seek to put the details of their collaboration on paper. It doesn't affect the actual workflow. Second, on promoting the good work of the AIA. In the initial years after the establishment of the AIA, the AAIA has been conducting work on internal workflows and human resources. So it took up the majority of their efforts. Now everything is on track, and a team of experts has been established, so there would be more room for the AIA to conduct publicity. Now, I think the good reputation is helpful for our position as an international aviation hub as well. So concerning the recommendations, I will defer to Mr. Mann. Concerning the implementation of recommendations, since the establishment of the AIA, 47 recommendations were made. All were taken on board by the industry. In Annex 13, there are requirements for the recipients of recommendations to do their best to implement the recommendations. Say, for example, bolts or screws with insufficient strength, then the recipients of the recommendations have improved the strength of the bolts accordingly. I don't understand why we still need to sign agreements with other departments. Let's say if there is a fire, the FSD would put out the fire and then they would carry out investigation. They don't need an agreement of cooperation. They have the statutory power to conduct investigation. Now, recommendations are all very well, but this is not mandatory. You can't mandate an aircraft manufacturer like Boeing to change how they work. So is it the case that after the ICAO has accepted the recommendations, they would issue an order of ratification? So these are more technical questions. I would defer to Mr. Mann to answer how we can ensure that the aircraft manufacturers are implementing the recommendation we give them, and also on collaboration with departments. Now, in Annex 13 of the ICAO standards, there is a requirement that before issuance of recommendations, the stakeholders should have sufficient communications among themselves to ensure that all the recommendations are practicable. So all recommendations would be forwarded to, say, Boeing or Airbus by the ICAO themselves. Like I said, 47 recommendations were issued and all of them were being implemented. On the cooperation agreements, Annex 13 of the ICAO standards encourages international and regional cooperation between parties. For instance, we have signed an agreement with the Civil Aviation Administration of China, of Macau, and South Korea, and also of France. Mr. Mann, sorry, I need to stop you here. Chairman, I understand you are talking about entering into agreement with overseas bodies. So the cooperation agreements refer to those signed with overseas bodies, both locally and overseas. So maybe after the meeting, we can have more communication. Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you, Chairman. The amendments are mainly for aligning ourselves with the international standards, so I support them. The paper mentioned that for a long period of time, besides the 35 investigations conducted, in the annex, the AIA has also put forward 47 safety recommendations in the past. So may I ask the administration to tell us a bit what these 47 recommendations were about and how, to what extent were they implemented? Second, I think this is proof that we enjoy a very high standard of aviation safety. In the past, we have only seen very minor incidents. Now, for serious accidents, one is too many. However, I noticed that maybe because of climate change, there are quite a number of clear air turbulence resulting from extreme weather scenarios. We have seen major accidents happening globally. So I would like to take this opportunity to ask the administration concerning extreme weather conditions. Have you conducted any assessments on how to deal with these scenarios? Thank you. Administration, I thank Mr. Holden Chow for his questions. On the second part of the question concerning the CAD's work, That is not the portfolio of the AIA. The CAD is a department under the TLB. So concerning aviation safety under extreme weather conditions, the CAD has been making reference to the latest guidelines issued by the ICAO. Now, guidelines have been issued to airlines to review their aviation safety protocols. Now, some airlines have been requiring passengers to keep their seatbelts on at all times during flight. So by referring to the latest standards, we can ensure aviation safety. Concerning the 47 safety recommendations, as per members' inquiry, we are going to submit a written supplements to members. Now on turbulence, as I've mentioned earlier on, the safety recommendations are separated into several categories. There are training for crew members and also enhancements to aircraft components and systems. And then there is enhancements to procedures. What about turbulence? Thank you, Mr. Holden Chow. On turbulence, we have conducted a review on historic cases. Now, in terms of training for crew members provided by the airlines, they need to be able to predict the flight routes in accordance with the weather conditions. And in flights, they need to be able to use their radar to gain advanced knowledge of the weather conditions. And also, there is the communication between the pilots and the crew and the cabin crew. For example, the timing of provision of service. They need to be able to make an accurate judgment. Now, some recommendations were made to the airliners to install handrails in the cabin so that when a turbulence hits, there is something to hold on to. Lastly, there is the situation awareness of crew members and the passengers. Now, when the seatbelt sign is on, some passengers may still be walking around away from their seats. So under extreme weather conditions, swift actions must be taken by passengers. So usually these are the areas of recommendations. And for individual incidents, depending on the policy of each airliner, we will issue guidelines.
Next, during Kong. Thank you, Chair. I have visited your website. I tried to see what are the cases that are still under investigations, and I believe that this kind of information is not clear. It is unclear whether such cases has already been completed or what are still under investigations. Perhaps you should consider revamping your website so that the presentation will be clearer. Second, also a recommendation, that is the average time required for investigation. Aviation incident is not like any traffic incident. It is only normal for you to take more time to look into this, but 30.5 months to conduct one investigation seems to be rather long. Is there any way for you to enhance your efficiency and to shorten the period of time required? Second, about the amendments of regulations. On page 6, I see that you would like to introduce a penalty. If they obstruct the investigation or they deliberately not to report it, you would like to introduce a penalty, which is a 5,000 Hong Kong dollars of fine and imprisonment of 6 months. I take a reference to other countries, and their penalties are much harsher. Aviation incidents are very serious. We should not allow anyone to neglect reporting or to obstruct the investigation. And I want to know, why do you set the fine at 5,000 Hong Kong dollars and imprisonment for 6 months? I also look into the regulations of other countries regarding aviation accidents investigations. As you understand, aviation accidents sometimes might involve national security. So some of the information has to be kept confidential, or the investigation itself has to be confidential. Certain reports also needs to be destroyed after a certain period of time. Would you consider adding such clauses into your regulations in the future? So the first 2 points are recommendations. The last one is a question. Thank you, Chair. I can respond to Ms. Kong about the penalty, and Mr. Mann can share with you about other confidentiality issues. As Ms. Kong mentioned, we suggested to add 2 penalties against persons who obstruct or be non-cooperative towards the investigations. Over the years, AAIA observed that the aviation industry, mainly the pilots or the aircraft company, are the main persons who need to report such incidents. Over the years, they immediately report the case to us. Because such accidents will hamper their own reputation as well as their aviation license. Sometimes the pilot's very own license is also very at stake, and it is very important to them. And the reason why we add such penalty, as I mentioned, this is only to align with the international standards. We also look into some local regulations, including the commercial vessels ordinance and also the summary conviction ordinance for the government officials. If there is any non-cooperative behavior, the level of penalty is similar to what we are proposing here. Therefore, we believe that the penalty that we propose for the fines as well as imprisonments are both reasonable. I would like to hand over to Mr. Mann to talk about the confidentiality arrangements. According to Annex 13 of ICAO, well, some internal papers by ICAO have already stipulated how can we keep confidential of such information and also the procedures of informing the public. We have a fair level of transparency regarding our procedures. Also, about the investigation period. We will try our very best to complete investigation as soon as we can. In the past 3 years, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many investigations has been suspended in overseas country. For instance, if we send some metal parts or engines to the United States for some metal extraction test, well, many of them are unable to accept our request because of the lockdown due to the pandemic. I hope you can understand. I would like to clarify. I believe that our investigations needs to be transparent and open. However, under special circumstances, I hope that you will leave room to keep some sensitive information confidential. I believe that the investigation has to be public. We still have 3 members. We might overrun a little bit. If you do not object, I would suggest extending our meeting to 10 more minutes. Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Chair. I would like to follow up about the penalty. The power of investigations is sometimes non-local. If the aircraft is registered in Hong Kong, then the incident might involve some non-local parties. Speaking of the penalty, there are 2 considerations. How would you apply the penalties to the non-local parties or agencies? Second, the fine of 5,000 Hong Kong dollars and an imprisonment of 6 months. Is it only applicable to individuals? or is it also applicable to agencies? For the other contracting parties overseas, is the penalty of a similar level of their regulations? Because I heard that you only took reference to the local regulations. Thank you. Let me respond to the last question. And I would like to invite Mr. Wang Chuntou to respond about the penalty arrangements of some non-local members. As you are already aware, we have taken reference to local regulations in setting our penalty, because we want to make sure that the penalty is comparable. So for similar behaviors, we want to see what are the similar penalties that we have in Hong Kong. As I mentioned, we have looked into the summary conviction ordinance as well as the merchandise shipping ordinance. As for the overseas regulations, because both the systems and the ordinance are different, so we believe that the appropriate ways of doing it is to take reference to local regulations, and it is to pose a deterrent effect. It will be applicable to both individuals and agencies. For individuals, that will be an imprisonment of 6 months. To professionals, I believe that this will pose sufficient deterrent effect to them. And I would like to hand over to Mr. Wang Chuntou about some overseas registered companies and persons. Thank you, Chair. About non-local members and the application of our penalty. If the aircraft is registered in Hong Kong, or if the owner, the operator, or the pilot is a permanent resident of Hong Kong or China, then the penalty will be applicable on them. We believe that it has largely covered the scope of AAIA. Therefore, we don't need to worry whether it is applicable to overseas persons. I would like to follow up. It's just a question, or maybe you can take it as a comment. Just now, you mentioned that the penalty is applicable to both individuals and the agencies, and you can't imprison an agency. You can only fine them for 5,000 Hong Kong dollars too. How much deterrent effect can you pose to them? Second, maybe the penalty in overseas country is much more severe than that of Hong Kong. For a Hong Kong registered aircraft or a Hong Kong registered crew was involved in an incident in overseas country, then probably the other countries shall be able to indict them, because it is likely for them to violate relevant regulations in other countries. Will there be a double indiction? Second, if we compare ourselves and our penalty to the overseas country, would our standard be greatly different, and what would be the consequences? If the chief inspector deliberately provide wrong information, then the person who decide to submit such information, then that specific person will be under the penalty that we introduced here. Although the behavior is conducted by an agency, but the person who make such decision will be subject to imprisonment. And that's why we believe that there is still a deterrent effect. You have also asked about an Hong Kong registered aircraft involving in an incident overseas. In that case, investigations will be conducted by the Overseas Investigation Authority, so there will not be double penalty. Thank you. Next, Dr. Charman Kong. Well, I think for a regulations to be effectively implemented, it is very important for this to have sufficient deterrent effect. As other members have asked, if the aircraft companies or other stakeholders did not implement your recommendations, or what we want to know is there is any supervision or monitoring about such implementations of recommendations. Second, I also find clauses suggesting for operation of voluntary incident reporting system. I want to know how is it going to operate in the future. On one hand, you want to encourage reporting. On the other hand, you want to ensure the precision and accuracy of such information. Since this is voluntary, people might want to avoid reporting whenever they can. So how can you effectively implement this? This April, an aircraft of Qatar Airlines has deviated from the flight route. I'm not sure if you have followed up the measures. Perhaps this can serve as a lesson for us. This March, both pilots on one particular Indonesian aircraft has fallen asleep for 28 minutes. These are some very worrying situations. The first case happened in Hong Kong, and the second case happened in overseas countries. Do you have any recommendations for these parties?
好多謝議員。
Ms. Chung, thank you. Concerning the voluntary provision of information, under the existing legislation, the relevant airline companies or the pilots are required under the law to report the incidents to the AAIA after the incidents. The new voluntary incident reporting system refers to persons holding information other than the persons mentioned above. There would be a mechanism for them to provide the information to the chief accident and safety investigator. Whether the information provided is reliable and credible, that would be judged by the chief investigator. For ongoing investigation, we can't divulge the details of those investigations here. But maybe Mr. Mann can talk about what we have done concerning the incidents of other airliners. Concerning implementation of the safety recommendations, Annex 13 requires a response from the recipients of the recommendations within 90 days, the follow-up work they are going to take up. And then our responsibility would be to review the progress with those recipients every 3 months until the recommendation is fully implemented. Now, this is my suggestion. I think Mr. Rin Kong is right. The deterrence of the penalties are too low. So I suggest we should significantly increase the maximum fine level. So that's the same recommendation. And we still have 2 members, Mr. Brave Chan. Thank you, Chairman. I think the work of the AIA is very pragmatic. Now, from media reports, we have heard about a lot of peculiar incidents in aviation. Now, if there is some frequent occurrence of accidents in a certain period of time, maybe we should impose a heftier fine on the same airliner. Now, if there are incidents like a loosened bolt, then that would be the immediate problem we need to address. But what about less immediate circumstances? Ms. Hong. Now, for accidents which occurred outside Hong Kong, that would be the CAD's responsibility. Now, even when the investigation is still ongoing, the CAD would require the airline company to conduct a review immediately. Now, for accidents which occurred outside Hong Kong, safety recommendations would be made even during the investigation. It is now my turn. First of all, I state my support for the legislative amendments. It is helpful for enhancing the investigation framework of civil aviation incidents and ensure that there is impartiality. Now, paragraph 15 or paragraph 12 of the paper, it says that the AIA has been adopting technology in conducting investigation. So what is the progress of this? If there are more serious accidents, would you seek help from the Civil Aviation Administration of China? Second, we are seeing rapid developments in low altitude economy. Now we have the eVTOL. The technology is not widespread yet. Now, to ensure ample developments in the technology, we need legislative framework on the flight routes and also the management of low altitude airspace. So will the government incorporate low altitude civil aviation incidents under the portfolio of the AIA? I will first take the question on low altitude economy, and then we'll defer to Mr. Mann on the collaboration between the AIA and the national body. On low altitude economy, we understand that there is rapid developments in the economy. Now, CAP 448G, that's a piece of local legislation to regulate small-scale unmanned aircraft. So the CAD has been encouraging the use of small unmanned aircraft in more application scenarios under CAP 448G. Now we are reviewing the development of certain drone types. For instance, we are aware that there are passenger carrying drones or cargo carrying drones. We will consider revising the legislation in a timely manner to provide room for developments of low altitude economy. May I invite Mr. Mann to talk about the investigation capacity mentioned in paragraph 12? We have just introduced 2 unmanned aircraft and 3D scanning system to enhance our investigation capacity. Now, in view of the advancements in technology, we will procure more high-tech tools. Now, with the CAAC, we have entered into a cooperation agreement back in 2021. Now, we have also paid a visit to the National Institute on Civil Aviation and also the Accident Investigation Center of the nation for exchange. Now, every year, we would undergo joint training. Now, the next round of training will be in June. Mr. Andy Seale will lead a delegation of experts to receive training. I thank the administration for your attendance. The time is up, so that concludes this item. The next item is any other business. Members, do you have any AOB that you would like to discuss? There being none, the meeting is adjourned. The next meeting will be held on the 2nd of July this year. Thank you.